I have a question. I think, and you stated right now something I think is very important. It's the difference between legislative action and federal administrative action. And by your testimony, it's obvious that there's a great number of administrative action that can actually take place right now, not pending on legislation, which we know that not only for the issue of Puerto Rico, but just in general, Congress is slow. So it'll take some time to get legislation passed. But the oversight board obviously can be a much help, and PROMESA itself grants the board the power to petition Congress to improve PROMESA itself or to ask for support in different administrative areas, personnel, like the governor requested here as well. Is there a joint collaboration or a list of priorities that can be assessed by your office that I think the board can work hand in hand in just to get the support needed, or the administrative action which can be executed in a shorter time frame than legislation, which just by normal in Congress can take much more time?
Can take years.
It could take years. Yeah.
And yes, and I will name some examples. You knew what happened last week. The leadership have to pull back the healthcare bill, and maybe next week will be considered. They're still working on that, but there's no provision for that. So any legislation will take a lot in House and Senate. So the easiest and fastest way to encourage the Puerto Rican economy is using the federal government in the executive orders or administrative actions. One of those I will just name the letter I sent to Sima Verma, the administrator of CMS, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. There are some provisions that were implemented in the last year that they can continue, and that will means millions of dollars for local providers. Those kind of measures can be taken just by the strike of a pen, without any legislation. We just copy one of the letters, and in that area, I just have the support of member Carlos Curvelo, Mario Diaz-Balart, Senator Marco Rubio, Sean Duffy, Ileana Ros-Lehtinen, just to name a few of the leaders that are backing up those actions. Another action that can be implemented by administrative action is the administration of the rules for Medicare Advantage, as I already stated. I just sent a letter in February to the Secretary of the Department of Transportation, asking to the department to grant Puerto Rico the same exemption they allow to Alaska and Hawaii to be out of the cabotage air cargo. That will be a relief for carriers of certain countries that can maintain restrictive bilateral relations with the United States, and that will help a lot the economy. That action can be done just by in an administrative way. Tracker Prime, the inclusion of veterans in Puerto Rico to access that kind of health services for veterans can be just by the strike of a pen by the Secretary of the Defense. No need to have legislation on that matter. Other kinds of areas that we can promote in the same area is in the HOT department. As an example, I was dealing last week with federal agencies asking to have the equal treatment in gathering statistics by the census. One of the main issues we are falling behind the states and falling behind the territories is that we are not providing the data. So any survey, any study that Congress or the U.S. government is doing in the island, we do not provide the data, we are out of the picture. And the fair market rent calculations for housing and small businesses and healthcare, the gypsies, are just an examples of those areas with the formula that do not apply to Puerto Rico because we don't have the data, or because the low income subsidy, the lease, do not apply the social security, the social SSI do not apply to the island, so the rest of the formula is changed and we are capped and we don't receive the money. Those are just an example of 2 or 3 programs, but even the task force report have an appendix with more than 40 programs, federal programs that treat us differently. I think we should trigger those areas and have the board as a way to make the pressure with me, with the governor, and have the federal government to act decisively with 2 of many of those issues. Actually, let me add something. We just got a hearing in the Small Business Committee, which I'm part of it, in March 2. And we're waiting. You are aware that we just add the PROMESA Act, 671 new areas in the hub zones for the island. That will improve the areas that local businessmen and small business can have federal contracts being allocated. Right now, the General Accounting Office is doing a study and a survey about how the program is functioning in the island. Is there any other area that we should require? And that report will come out in June. I just have a meeting with them in February, and that's one of the areas that we should trigger more information and help to establish even task force from the White House and, of course, the board and the governor and my office.
Thank you for your question. Thank you for the answer.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Does any members have any additional questions for the Congresswoman? No. Thank you very much for your presentation this morning, Congresswoman. It's good to see you, and thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don.